What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, this isn't going to be a very happy topic, but it is an interesting one, so I hope you guys all find it interesting. I'm going to be discussing hurricanes in this episode of Joe Winko Talk. I figured because I did a whole episode of Joe Winko Talk about tornadoes back in year 2018, I should do one about hurricanes too. I'll have the link to that video in the pinned comments, by the way. As you all probably know, I live in Florida right now, but I'm originally from the state of Wisconsin, and up in Wisconsin, we never really knew anything about hurricanes. Like, we knew they happened in Florida, and we knew that they came from the water, but besides that, we barely knew anything about hurricanes because we weren't close to the ocean. Like, yeah, we were close to the Great Lakes, but no hurricanes ever came out of those, except for one time back in 1996, but that was a tad bit before I could remember anything, and from what I know, it wasn't really that bad. But I also lived in the Dominican Republic from years 2007 to 2010, and that was with my biological uncle, Romario. May he rest in peace. During that time, we only had 2 or 3 hurricane scares, but we wrote them all out because my uncle's house was built strong enough to withstand really strong hurricanes, and plus we weren't too close to the water either. The first major hurricane that I ever heard about was Hurricane Katrina, which happened in New Orleans, Louisiana, back in summer of 2005. And it basically wiped out New Orleans because it broke the levees and it killed over 1,000 people in the USA. Then I remember years after that, I went online because I wanted to read up more about Hurricane Katrina, and I went on the Wikipedia article they had about Hurricane Katrina, and I found this map right here. And I looked at that, and I looked at all that stuff they had on it, and I asked myself, what the hell is that? I mean, look how that all looks. But later on, I learned that that map was actually tracking the hurricane's intensity as it moved over the land and as it made landfall during its whole entire lifespan of the hurricane. And those colored dots that you see on the screen, each one of those is where the hurricane went and how strong it was in each location. Each of them are levels of the Saffir-Simpson scale. That's how hurricanes are categorized based on their wind speed. And they're also color coded too, as you guys noticed. This may seem really weird, but whenever I see one of those hurricane maps and I see how they have them like color coded and everything of where it went, it always like attracts my interest and gets me really interested in looking at it because, as you all should know by now, I have a mild form of autism, and one of the things it causes me to be really sensitive to bright colors, especially like those colors on the hurricane map. I'm extremely sensitive to bright, saturated colors, a lot more than normal people are. That's one thing about my autism. So that's what caused me to get really interested into hurricanes because the way those maps are designed. I think it's really cool, but it's really scary too. However, the storms themselves don't actually change color at all. That's just the way they're color coded on the map of their intensity, in case you guys didn't understand that, for those of you who take everything I say literally. I'm going to explain each of the hurricane categories right now. So, first there's dark blue, and that color means that it's a tropical depression with winds less than 38 miles per hour. We had wind speeds like that in Wisconsin from time to time, so 38 mile per hour winds, they don't really do anything at all, really. Next on the Simpson scale is light blue, and that's tropical storms with 39 to 73 mile per hour winds. Those can actually pack quite a powerful punch, really. However, in case you're all wondering, the average house is built to withstand 70 mile per hour winds to 90 mile per hour winds. Houses in hurricane prone areas, however, are usually built stronger to withstand higher winds. But that isn't always true. So don't just think that just because you live in a hurricane risk area that your house will withstand a powerful hurricane, because it might not. That's one thing you need to double check on. So next we finally get to the color yellow, and that's a Category 1 hurricane with 74 to 93 mile per hour winds. And the damage that a Category 1 hurricane does, it really depends on how well your home is constructed, honestly. And it's really that all of the categories of hurricanes, the damage they do depends on how well your home or how well the building itself is constructed. But from what I read, usually damage from a Category 1 hurricane is broken branches here and there and some shingles on the roof being blown off. Very light damage, but they can still pack a powerful punch. But overall, it's very light damage from a Category 1. Next is dark yellow, and this is a Category 2 hurricane with 96 to 110 mile per hour winds. This is where things start getting serious, but again, it depends on how well your house is constructed. In storms like these, windows can be hit with flying debris and they can be broken, but if they're hurricane-proof windows, they won't break at all because they're hurricane-proof windows. And in addition to that, trees also bend more in the winds. And palm trees are usually able to withstand hurricanes because they're able to bend. However, elm trees and oak trees, the thick, heavy ones that you see in the north, and they have a lot of them in the south also, branches can snap off of those, and I'm not exactly sure if a Category 2 hurricane alone would be strong enough to bring down a massive tree, but they can do some serious damage, a Category 2 can. Also, if your house has like aluminum sidings, not that kind of aluminum, I sure hope not, but those kind of aluminum sidings, those can break off of the house from a Category 2 hurricane force winds, and it can get pretty messy at that point. The next color or category on the Saffir-Simpson scale is orange, and orange represents a Category 3 hurricane with 111 to 129 mile per hour winds, and it gets even more intense with a Category 3. With winds at this speed, if you're standing outside, you can't withstand winds that strong. You'll literally start getting blown away. Even if it's a Category 1 or a Category 2, it still isn't safe to stand outside, so please don't do that. You can also get hit with flying debris and die a really painful and really violent death. But when it comes to what your house will endure, again, it depends on how well constructed your house is. The door could be blown in because of the strong winds. If your windows aren't hurricane proof or hurricane strength, they are definitely going to break during Category 3. And trees are also much more likely to fall down during a Category 3 hurricane, and even the roof can start peeling off of the house, which could cause the whole house to collapse. But as I said earlier, that depends on how well constructed your house is. You can actually get these things called hurricane bolts to fasten your roof down onto your house so it can't blow away as easily and so it can withstand really strong hurricane winds. I've heard that those things are actually really cheap too. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what I remember hearing online. But overall, if your house isn't built to withstand hurricanes at all, it's definitely going to get wiped out by a Category 3 hurricane. Also, mobile homes and trailers will be destroyed during a Category 3 hurricane, so you do not want to hunker down in a trailer or a mobile home during a Category 3. Next on the Saffir-Simpson scale is dark orange, and these are Category 4 hurricanes with 130 to 156 mile per hour winds. And this is literally almost as bad as it can possibly get. But again, it depends on how well your house is constructed, because some houses are built well enough to withstand Category 4 hurricanes. But an average house with no hurricane bolts or no hurricane strength windows, it will literally be wiped out. The roof will tear off, and that will cause the walls of the house to collapse in because there's nothing holding them up at all. Flying debris will be flying everywhere and will become very dangerous and very deadly as well. trees will definitely fall down and can cause extremely bad damage. But then again, as I said earlier, it all depends on how well your house is constructed. I actually remember my adoptive parents telling me that there's actually a factory that builds manufactured homes in the state of Florida, and those manufactured homes are able to withstand a Category 4 hurricane at most. But they actually forgot the name of that factory. I really wanted to do a video there, but they forgot the name of it, so oh well. But there are homes that are capable of withstanding a Category 4 hurricane. If they're properly constructed, they are. Another creepy thing is, as you all know, I live in the state of Florida, but right by the water, and hurricanes get their strength from moving over warm water. I thought all the houses in Florida were built to withstand Category 4s or Category 5 hurricanes. That's honestly what I believed when I first moved down here. But that's definitely not true. Those building codes didn't come around until the mid to late 2000s, that you had to build your house to withstand a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane. And a lot of the houses in my area are actually really old and built in the 1970s and the 1980s. It's terrifying to think about, but it's true. So last on the Saffir-Simpson scale is bright red, and this is the worst rating. This is a Category 5 hurricane with wind speeds greater than 150 miles per hour. Basically, with wind speeds like this, the house will either have severe damage or will be completely wiped out and destroyed. I'm not exactly sure how well a house built to withstand a Category 4 hurricane would hold up to a Category 5 hurricane, because there's actually no cap on the wind speed of a Category 5. It just says winds greater than 157 miles per hour. There's also no Category 6 hurricane on the official Saffir-Simpson scale. However, there is a site called Hypothetical Hurricanes where people make up stories about hurricanes hitting these places and everything, and they make maps for them. They do have a copy of the Saffir-Simpson scale on that website, and let me show it to you real quick. It's also color-coded as well, the exact same way that this Simpson scale, the true Simpson scale, is color-coded. Here it is. So there you see subtropical storm, tropical depression, Category 1, Category 2, Category 3, Category 4, Category 5. Then when you get to Category 6, it's dark red. Then when you get to Category 7, it's medium red. Then when you get to Category 8, it's like a reddish, purplish color. Then when you get to Category 9, it's purple. Category 10 is like a really, really, really faded peach color. And then a hyperclone is like a pinkish color, like a darkish saturated pink. And a super hyperclone is, I'm not sure if that's purple or if that's gray. Then there's megacane and a superstorm. And let me bring this up about hypercanes. A hypercane is a hypothetical hurricane that could happen and be extremely powerful, enough to where if a hypercane actually formed, it'd be strong enough to completely destroy cities on the Atlantic coast, and can even devastate cities as far inland as Cincinnati, Ohio. I actually saw that in a YouTube video, and I thought that that was really scary to think about, because Ohio is so far away from the ocean, and it'd be that strong to move in? But it's really unlikely for that to happen, really. In order for a hypercane to form, the waters would have to be, I think, 130 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and the waters out in the ocean have never been that warm before, so you guys don't have to worry about anything. The winds in hurricanes are extremely bad, but they usually are not the main killers in hurricanes at all. There's actually a lot of stuff that hurricanes cause that kill people. One thing is carbon monoxide poisoning. A common thing that happens during hurricanes is that people lose power, and a lot of people don't know this, but they plug in generators in their house so they can keep power and so they can keep things running. But that is actually a really bad idea, because generators release carbon monoxide, and that's what really ends up killing everyone, is the carbon monoxide if someone runs a generator inside the house. You're never supposed to run a generator inside a house. That's a serious hazard. That actually happened in Orlando during Hurricane Irma. I believe a whole family of people died because of carbon monoxide poisoning because they were running a generator inside their house. That's really not safe, and please don't ever do that because carbon monoxide, it's a tasteless and odorless gas. You won't even know it's there. You'll just be breathing it in, and then you'll faint, and then you'll die. And it's horrible, too. So do not run a generator inside your house during a hurricane, or at any time, because it's extremely dangerous. But that still isn't a major killer from hurricanes. 90% of the people who die from hurricanes actually die from the storm surge. And that's basically wind blowing the water onto shore. And it's worse during high tide if the hurricane makes landfall around that time. And the stronger the hurricane, the worse the storm surge comes in. That's actually why I always wanted to move further inland in Florida, in a place that's safe from the storm surge, like Ocala, because that's actually what the evacuations are based off of. If you're in a storm surge area, they tell you that you have to evacuate. Otherwise, if you're stranded there and the hurricane is going on, and you try calling for help and you try calling for the police or the paramedics to come save you, they're not going to come save you. You're on your own at that point, and that's creepy, really. And I honestly hate living near the water, too, because there's way too many people here. It's not safe for me to go out and ride my bike because I'm worried someone might run me over. And plus, it's too much drama as well. And when that storm surge gets inside your house, it literally floods and destroys everything. Even though the water eventually subsides, it still leaves nasty stuff on your walls, bacteria and fungus and everything, and you have to have all the drywall carved out and removed because it's a serious health hazard. And what's the point of going through that? I mean, it's not worth living on the beach for that, seriously. But you'll be surprised how many people are too stupid to think of that. It's honestly really upsetting. Hurricanes actually happen all over the world, but they aren't called hurricanes all over the world. Let me show you guys a visual of that really quick. 1 second. So the area where the USA's hurricanes occur is the Atlantic Ocean in this part of the world, right here. These storms are called hurricanes, and they spin counterclockwise due to the Coriolis effect, due to Earth's rotation and them occurring in the northern hemisphere. No hurricanes ever occur on the equator at all. This is actually a map of all the known hurricanes that affected the USA. These storms usually move west towards the USA. They also can curve upward without making landfall anywhere on the East Coast, where they dissipate in the cold waters up north. However, back in 2017, there actually was one hurricane that actually curved up and instead went east and affected the United Kingdom, and that was Hurricane Ophelia of year 2017. It made landfall in the United Kingdom as a Category 1 extratropical cyclone, and it killed 6 people and caused flooding and storm surge and damage to the area. Let me explain to you guys the difference between a tropical hurricane and an extratropical cyclone. Hurricanes and tropical storms, they get their energy from warm water, but extratropical cyclones, they get their energy from cold air. That's how they're different. That's why on some of the hurricane track maps that you see on Wikipedia, some of the symbols are circle, but some of them are also shaped as triangle. When they're shaped as a circle, that means it's a hurricane or a tropical storm. When it's shaped as a triangle, that means it's an extratropical cyclone. A free tip for you guys. Hurricanes can also happen in this part of the ocean, which is known as the Eastern Pacific. However, they never make landfall in California, Oregon, or Washington. The reason why is because the water temperatures on the west coast of the USA are way too cold for hurricanes to make landfall. Hurricanes need warm water in order for them to survive and in order for them to be able to make landfall. However, there had been hurricanes which made landfall on the west coast of Mexico and hurricanes which affected Baja California, such as Hurricane Patricia, which made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane and ended up killing 13 people. There's actually another thing that I should clarify, because when I first saw this, it kind of confused me, so I just wanted to explain it to all of you guys, just in case you are too. The cone of uncertainty. You know when you watch a hurricane forecast on the news and you see something like this over the map of where they think it's going to hit? I didn't really understand exactly what that meant. I knew that it was like the path of the hurricane where they think it was going, But what I thought it was they were expecting the hurricane to grow and then take out like all the stuff in the cone. And that kind of freaked me out because I remember seeing that from Hurricane Irma, and I was worried that Hurricane Irma was going to turn into this massive storm that was going to destroy the whole state of Florida, and then I wasn't going to have a place to live the next month. But luckily that didn't happen because I looked into it some more, and what that actually means is they don't know exactly which way the hurricane is going to go. It could hit anywhere in the cone. It's not that it's going to hit everywhere in the cone. Big difference. So just wanted to clarify that to you guys. Okay, now moving on to the Asian Pacific Ocean, with China, Japan, the Philippines, all those other places. Hurricanes actually do occur here, but they're not called hurricanes in this part of the world. These storms are called typhoons. However, they're still exactly the same as hurricanes. They just occur in a different part of the world. And they're still just as dangerous, too. These storms also spin counterclockwise, since they're in the northern hemisphere above the equator, due to the Coriolis effect that I mentioned earlier. It seems like this is the worst area for storms like these, because if you look at the map of all the typhoons that occurred in this part of the world, you can tell that these ones were stronger due to the tint of the storm plotting maps that are all here. One of the deadliest ones was Typhoon Haiyan, which struck the Philippines in November of 2013 as a Category 5 super typhoon. It caused terrifying winds and severe storm surge as well. It killed a total of 7,000 people, too. I actually saw a documentary about that on YouTube a long time ago. That thing was a monster. And down in Australia, they also get affected by hurricanes, too. However, they're not called hurricanes in this part of the world, or typhoons either. They're actually called cyclones. And since they occur in the southern hemisphere, south of the equator, they actually spin clockwise. But they're still just as dangerous. They also happen in South Africa and the southern part of the African continent as well. Scary stuff, isn't it? That's actually why I always wanted to move further inland in Florida, like in Ocala, Florida, because Ocala, Florida is safer from hurricanes. It's more protected from hurricanes than the coastal cities are. Another spooky thing is, hurricane winds are never constant. For example, when I was outside during Hurricane Michael in Valdosta, Georgia, I remember opening the door and checking how strong the winds were to make sure I didn't get blown away at all. And when I stuck my hand out the door, the winds didn't feel so strong, so I went out there and started recording, and I had my umbrella with me. But then what I noticed was I kept getting pelted with gusts of wind, and it was pretty creepy. As soon as I stopped recording, a really strong gust of wind actually blew, and it blew up my umbrella, and it actually lifted me off my feet, only for a couple seconds, and I wasn't that high up, only like an inch or two, but then I felt my feet hit the ground, and I was like, what the heck? The really scary part was Interstate 75 was right behind me, and there were actually people driving on Interstate 75 at that time. So if that wind would have been stronger, it could have blew me right into Interstate 75, and that would not be good with cars going 50 and 60 miles per hour. I probably would have never made it back at all. And also, another really strong gust of wind blew my iPod Touch right out of my selfie stick that I was using to record. And I was like, what the heck? It was a really scary experience, because that was my first time actually being outside during a hurricane. It was a bit exciting, though, but still scary nonetheless. Another interesting thing I've learned about hurricanes is that they actually retire the names of hurricanes. For example, Hurricane Michael, I actually have footage of that hurricane, and I was really close to it when it occurred. Yeah, they're bound to retire Hurricane Michael because it did some serious damage to Florida's panhandle, and it killed a lot of people also. They retire the hurricane names when the hurricanes themselves become very notorious, and when they kill a lot of people and cause a certain amount of damage. And I'm pretty sure they're going to retire Hurricane Michael. Along with Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, and Hurricane Harvey and Katrina. All those names are retired. There will never be another one of either of them. Like Hurricane Irma, people always say that it was a Category 5 when it made landfall, but it was actually a Category 3 when it made landfall in Naples. I always thought it was actually a Category 2, but it was really actually a Category 3. Whenever I told someone it was just a Category 2, they would always tell me, no, it was stronger than that. And it was stronger than that. Now, you may all be wondering, was there ever a Hurricane Joe at all? Well, as a matter of fact, there actually was one, but it wasn't quite a hurricane. It was actually a typhoon, which occurred in the Asian Pacific Ocean. It actually struck the Philippines and Eastern Asia. It formed on July 15th, 1980, and it dissipated on July 24th, 1980, so quite a bit before my time, but yet it still has the same name as me, so it kind of did freak me out knowing that they actually did have a typhoon with the same name as me, but Joe is such a common name, it's only a matter of time before they would have used it. I thought it was weird that they used that name out in the Asian Pacific Ocean. I always thought that was more of like a American or European name. It wasn't very powerful though. It was only a Category 1 hurricane when it made landfall in the Philippines, but it did pack quite a powerful punch because it actually killed 31 people across the Philippines. And then it made landfall in Vietnam where it killed 130 people. In the Philippines, it destroyed 5,000 homes and left 29,000 people homeless. And in Vietnam, it destroyed 15,800 buildings and flooded 16,300 homes. It was a monster. I honestly was hoping that if there was actually a storm named Hurricane Joe, that it wouldn't have killed so many people. It's kind of sad knowing that it killed like at least 100. And it's really strange that it was only a Category 1, but it killed that many people. But I believe the thing is, at that time, houses in the Philippines weren't really constructed well enough to withstand really bad hurricanes, but I'm pretty sure things are different over there nowadays. Hopefully. I've never been to the Philippines. Too far away. Hurricanes can also travel pretty far inland. As a matter of fact, the one hurricane that traveled the farthest inland was Hurricane Hazel. It formed out in the Atlantic Ocean on October 5th, 1954, and it dissipated on October 18th, 1954. It made landfall in South Carolina as a Category 4 hurricane, and as it moved inland, it became an extratropical cyclone. But it really tore through North and South Carolina when it made landfall as a Category 4. And the crazy thing is, it curved north, and it still had hurricane force winds when it moved all the way up into Canada, which is kind of terrifying because I never thought that hurricanes could occur that far north. It also killed 81 people in Canada due to flooding. Really bad flooding. Hurricane Hazel is also known as the hurricane that refused to die, and in all standards it actually was. I thought it was crazy that it killed 81 people in Canada due to flooding and that it was able to carry that much moisture all the way that far north. That's technically kind of the same thing that happened with Hurricane Camille in 1969. It made landfall in Mississippi as a Category 5. After it made landfall in Mississippi, it moved up and then it curved east and headed towards Virginia. Then it caused catastrophic flooding in Virginia, and it killed 153 people in Virginia too, just from the flooding. It wasn't even a hurricane anymore by the time it reached there. It was a tropical storm. That's absolutely terrifying. Seriously, for it to travel that far and to kill people that far away. Gosh. So, because of that whole Hurricane Camille making landfall in Mississippi, then going all the way up to Virginia and killing a whole bunch of people from flooding and everything, that made me wonder, would it ever be possible for a hurricane to come up through the Midwest and come to Wisconsin and flood Wisconsin and kill a whole bunch of people like that? I actually asked that question on the hurricane section of Reddit. Let me read to you guys what they typed. It's pretty chilling. Possible. I guess a lot of things are possible. I guess it would require a lot of 1 in 1,000 type things to occur simultaneously. There's a speculation that in the right conditions, a very moist inland can supply the moisture and heat necessary to keep feeding tropical storms and temporarily sustain them as they move further inland, because that's where hurricanes get their power from warm water. I never really knew that they could get it over land too, if the land is really moist. So let's say it's late summer, the ocean is super hot, it's been raining throughout America all summer long, and the ground is super saturated all the way from Louisiana up to Minnesota. 1. If the hurricane made landfall in Louisiana, 2. Had no wind shear tearing it apart, the wind speed at landfall was category 4 or 5 or 3, and 3. It was full of water, as Hurricane Harvey was, and 4. It was moving forward at a rate of at least 21 miles per hour. Then it could arrive in that part of the country in less than 48 hours. Yeah, because if the hurricanes are moving pretty fast, that actually makes them last longer, and that makes them travel further without dissipating. Another scary fact, that's the same thing that happened with Hurricane Hugo in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Charlotte, North Carolina is 150 miles away from the coastline, but by the time Hurricane Hugo reached Charlotte, North Carolina, it was a Category 2 hurricane, which did some pretty bad damage to Charlotte. Maybe, if everything worked out just right, it could still have sustained winds of over 74 miles per hour when it reached the upper Midwest. It certainly could have enough rain to cause major flooding, though, and that's the real killer. Yeah, that's what would kill everyone in Wisconsin if a really strong hurricane came up and started destroying everything, especially if it still had 74 mile per hour winds, because people in Wisconsin are not prepared for that at all. That's the scary thing. However, that's really unlikely to happen, so, oh well. But it's still creepy to think about. You have to admit. So that's basically it for my hurricane video. I hope you guys all liked it. Have you ever been through a hurricane before? Have you ever experienced a hurricane before? What hurricane was it, and where were you when it happened, and how bad was it? Let me know in the comments, and let's get a conversation started. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.